Joining us. We appreciate it. This is Travis Hise, and today we are with FileVine. We're doing an interview with Logan Mcleod and Ryan Anderson. Ryan is the CEO at FileVine, and Logan is a senior data analyst at FileVine. And today they're going to discuss with us how case management systems can boost your marketing power. And this is really exciting for us. We've been waiting for this webinar for quite some time. Ryan's very busy. We had some trouble coordinating it, but we're happy to finally get here, and I'm going to turn it over to these guys and then ask some probing questions from every now and then. But for the most part, we're going to let them discuss exactly, what their system does, what a system can do for you, and let the experts really fill you guys in. So welcome, guys. We appreciate you guys taking the time.
Thank you. We're excited to be here.
So, let's talk about, I really want to turn this over to you guys. And Logan, Ryan, you guys run the show, really fill us in. Tell us exactly what, your system can do for, people who are looking to get a case management system or looking to change to, to a new case management system.
Yeah, so let me give you a broad overview first, and I'll try and kind of keep it along the lines of how we can boost marketing power. So generally at FileVine, we are big believers in data. If you work at FileVine, you will hear me say, hey, that's a great anecdotal piece of evidence, but we don't make decisions like that at FileVine. I need the actual data to make a decision. And what it turns out is that most of the time when you look at the hard data, it often tells a very different story than the anecdotal evidence we often see. So I hear lawyers make decisions like this. Well, we tried Google Ads for a month and it didn't work. And we tried TV for a year and it worked okay. So we're going to go with TV. Or I'll hear lawyers say, well, mostly we were just trying to, family and friends type roles. And that's what works for us because every time we've tried online advertising or billboard type advertising, it hasn't worked. That is not data-based reasoning. That is reasoning from your gut. That is reasoning from 2 or 3 minor anecdotes. And it's going to lead to very poor decisions over the course of time. Let's kind of broaden the scope and understand, as personal injury attorneys, there are only so many cases out there. It is a competitive environment, and your competitors are absolutely taking a look at everything they can do to more efficiently acquire cases than their competitors. And they're doing this all the time. They're trying to improve all the time. And if you're kind of sitting out there with your thumb in the wind saying, well, this seems to make sense, or that might make sense, or, this is what I've heard is the hot way to do things, that's not going to be very helpful to your firm over the long run. But if you can say, look, we can look over the past 6 months and know exactly that we had 150 cases come in from Google, 200 come in from our advertising efforts, 50 came in from friends and family, and another 20 came in from professional referrals from other attorneys. Then you have a very clear picture of where your leads are coming in, and then you can start to do some really interesting things. FileVine is all about giving you that deep technical data so that you can make very smart decisions about where to spend your money and your time. So with that, I'm going to kind of let Logan lead most of this discussion. That said, I'm more than happy to answer any questions as we go along. And Logan knows I kind of can't help myself from time to time. I'm sure I'll jump in.
Well, Brian, I just one quick, point on that, what you were talking about from, our side, as far as running a marketing firm, what you just explained is critical, because there's so many times where, we'll be producing, leads for our clients, and they simply just have no idea exactly what it's doing for them in their firm. And which is why we are such big fans of systems like yours, because it helps us prove the value that we provide. And then, conversely, it helps our clients understand exactly where they should be investing their dollars. So that's why we're, very adamant about our clients utilizing systems like yours. So I everything you said is well on point.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it must be very frustrating, Travis, to have a conversation with a lawyer who says, well, geez, I just don't know if we made any money from your advertising. It's a much better conversation when you can walk in and say, well, look, we know because of our APIs into FileVine that you signed 5 clients. over the past 5 months. And hey, how are those clients doing? Oh, looks like you settled one for $100,000. Well, then the $5,000 you spent with us, or the $10,000 you spent with us, turns out to have been very valuable. And so those kinds of quantitative, unemotional decision-making processes are what we value most here at Filevine, and we never stop iterating. Filevine has almost 1,000 firms at this point. We'll pass that number very soon, and what we can learn from seeing data and how systems get used across 1,000 firms is pretty extraordinary. And so we've developed a set of best practices and key metrics that we recommend our firms look at, and we'll let Logan kind of dive into those now.
Great, guys. Thanks. We'll kind of jump into it and just kind of review kind of the agenda, what we're looking at here. So we want to kind of talk about first how case management is going to be able to help you track your marketing efforts. And then we want to, jump from there to unify both our marketing efforts and how case management is actually handling those in action. And then we'll kind of wrap up with question and answers. If you do have any questions, again, write those down. We'd be more than happy to review those at the end. So what we really see, the big picture of everything here is kind of the bread and butter at Filevine is data in is data out. If you're putting bad data into a system, there's no way that you're going to be able to extract enough information or good information to make key decisions, have actual good data to know what direction you should take your marketing efforts. And so we kind of have a really good top-down funnel approach to measure as granular as you'd like to get exactly types of cases coming in, quality of sources, quality of cases, expected settlement values. All of these things should be things that you should be tracking at the front end of your system. You want to know exactly which one of your marketing efforts are producing. So that way you can kind of adjust the faucets and adjust the flow and reallocate those resources to the most producing and best producing sources. And we'll kind of take a look at that here. So the life cycle that we typically see a case come in is first we get introduced to them. We determine if it's a case that we want to take through a qualification process. We then sign the case, progress it through its thing, and then settlement. And so what we're looking at here is top end of the funnel. Where's it coming from? How good is it? And then we want to look at the back end of the funnel as well to see, what are the fees that we're collecting on this? Did we hit the projected settlement value? Is one of my sources producing really, really high quality cases, or do I have another source that produces really low settlement types of cases? When we collect those data points, we can kind of connect it all together and know exactly which ones are going to be producing, which ones are the ones I want to focus on, and so forth. And essentially to do that, you got to find the right software that's going to be able to manage those for you. And that's where Filevine really, hits its stride. Our platform is 100% customizable. Anything that you want to record in the system, we can report on. We have many firms that are going to be having a 2- and 3-tiered system to qualify a case, to record it. If they want to say, this came in from web marketing, and they say, well, which one were we doing? Was it our Google ads? Was it Facebook ads, Instagram? And from there, which specific campaign actually produced that, so they can
drill down.
Yeah, drill downs, exactly. Drill down step by step to see what is actually producing. If you're just recording, this came from the web, but you don't get any further than that, you're really losing a lot of power in being able to make high-level decisions. Cool. So customizations. What we want to look at here is, this is Filevine's back end. What we're looking at here is a basic intake system. We're going to be able to record stuff like, when did the case come in? When was the incident? Who is the actual employee performing the intake, whether you have an intake staff or an outside service, or you have attorneys out in the field signing cases. We then want to know exactly the source that it's coming from. If it's coming from a, professional referral or a client referral or anything like that, and ultimately the specific details. Filevine, we continuously train hundreds and hundreds of firms to utilize this process. And if you're not on Filevine, I highly recommend giving us a look. But if you're not, take a look at your system. Can it do these things? Can it meet these requirements? Can it record the data that you need? Are you able to extract the data and make meaningful decisions from it?
One thing I would say about that, Logan, is, a lot of kind of point solution type systems, they're kind of fine for a point in time, but as you and I both know, marketing evolves. So what may have worked in 2017 may not work in 2018, may not work in 2019. Nobody thought 5 or 6 years ago that Instagram marketing was going to be key to driving people to web pages and driving results for lawyers. But it turns out that Instagram can be extremely powerful. But if you don't have a tool that can quickly say, okay, we're going to account for an entirely new referral source and how that referral source interacts with, different verbiage, depending on which ads we're displaying, if your system can't handle that and can't grow with your firm, you're going to have a really hard time over the long run. And Filevine's built to do those very kinds of things.
Awesome. That's definitely a key thing that, we really like to tout about Filevine is our ability to pivot on the fly with next to no effort to adjust for those kinds of, future needs, and know exactly what direction we want to take. So we're looking at right here, just a basic case setup. In fact, talking about being able to pivot easy, Filevine really facilitates that, right? So we're looking at a list of, our drop downs on the back end of the system here that's going to designate, walk-in, Google, Billboard, event. We may have a new referral source that we want to add in here, maybe a specific chiropractor we're working with or another firm that we've partnered up with that we're sending cases back and forth. We can make these changes in about 30 seconds, whereas we know a few other platforms may take closer to a couple of days, maybe even weeks to make, even if it's even possible to adjust these things. But, again, keep hitting on this subject, make sure you're working with a system that can grow with you, that can adjust and make those steps as you make them.
Actually, stay here real quick, Logan. So one of the points we're trying to make with drill downs is that you need to measure your marketing, not just by like the exact person. So if you have attorney referral, you may say, well, attorney George Smith is very good at sending us cases, so we should talk to him more. But really, that's kind of not a systematic way to think about it. What you should be thinking to yourself is attorneys generally may be good referral sources. And so I should maybe spend more time developing attorney referral sources. But you actually don't know that unless you can track George Smith individually as a person, but also attorney referrals as a category. And that's what Filevine can allow you to do, is allow you to drill down within categories extremely granularly. There's no, you can go as far as you want with the granularity of Filevine.
Yeah, awesome stuff here. Great. Well, kind of what we want to do here is actually, I'd like to jump into an actual case. We're looking at a bunch of stuff here that is back end, but let's actually jump in and show you a project. So we're looking at creating a new project. We're going to play this instance as if a new client calls you or a potential new client shows up, and we're going to specify their name. And I'm just going to call this guy test client. Let's see here. Cool. We're going to add this person to Filevine. Of course, we're going to record their phone number, any other pertinent data, email, stuff like that that may be, good to contact them. Anyways, we create their case inside of Filevine, and with Filevine, we're going to have these pre-built templates that's instantly going to start up a task flow to, follow up with the client, set appointments with them, record important case details. We're going to jump into the intake tab here, and this is where we really get in our stride. We were looking at a screenshot earlier, but right here we can see, we want to know what day they contacted us. We want to know which employee is actually performing this intake. And then here's this drill down that we had talked about before, right? So we want to know if this attorney referral comes in, and we want to specify that person's name, right? So we're going to call this guy George. So that way we can know exactly how many cases George, we're going to call this actually physical therapy. But what's important right here is knowing, as a whole, under the umbrella, how many cases am I getting total from attorney referrals? And then secondary to that, which one of these attorneys is actually producing these cases? We're going to be taking a look on the second half here on some key data analytic points that we want to look at that's going to drill down these things. So just kind of keep that in mind so that we can continue to take further steps down. The other thing that we do want to hit on, though, is the importance of designating how qualified the case actually is and what ended up happening with the case. Of course, we'd write a description of the incident here, but ultimately we want to know, were they qualified? Did this person have a claim that we wanted to represent, or is this somebody that maybe would be best to refer out? That's what we kind of designate under the resolution. We've accepted the case. Here's the date that they signed a retainer agreement. We know that this is a good case. We can then begin to make projections on what we expect it to settle for and additional information like that. If it's pending or if we referred the case out, again, this is really important to know who am I sending my cases out to and what the referral fee is. Now, all of these points are derivatives of marketing efforts, right? You are trying to grow your business. You're trying to manage the clients coming in. You need to know exactly which ones are producing well, which ones am I referring out, and which ones actually, you know, maybe getting phone calls and stuff, but never actually turn into a case. If you don't record this info and actually manage it and look at it on a daily basis, you're going to be, not being able to make the best decisions possible. Again, you're going to be making decisions on anecdotal data. You feel like your phones are blowing up from that TV ad, but in actuality, you never sign up a case or they're never actually good. Look at the data, have the numbers and information right at your fingertips. Great. Let's jump back to that deck real quick. Cool. So again, the next thing that we would want to look at is once a case has signed, you know, we have a specific phase and task flow, basically the workflow of what we want to do as the case comes in, right? And so we're able to see kind of the assembly line process on this side over here, right? A new case comes in, it's considered a new lead. Under the new lead status, we have all of these important tasks to perform. So we're going to enter in all available intake information. We're going to qualify them, determine if it's a case that we want. If it has been accepted, you know, we want to get a retainer signed, stuff like that. We can then progress to new client setup, which is going to be, you know, gathering initial treatment documents, accident photos, whatever that may be. But the important thing here is, again, to have a pivotal system that can grow with you as you set up your assembly line process for cases, right? If you are having to rework the workflow on the fly for every case that you come in, that's not scalable. There's no way you're going to be able to grow your business quickly without having a structure in place, and FileVine really facilitates that.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, you know, if anybody's looking at this particular task flow setup and saying to themselves, well, we don't really handle no fault arbitration in our particular state, and that's not really relevant to us. That's not a problem. These are extremely customizable. Each one of these phases can be edited, deleted, added to. Same with the tasks that are triggered by them. So we're dealing with a very configurable system here.
Right. And to that end, you know, let's kind of jump back into that case and just kind of look at it. So again, we would qualify this lead, determine that it's one we want to. We're going to change this phase from intake instead to next case setup. And again, we're going to have, let's save this stuff. Almost committed a FileVine sin there. Anyways, we can see that instantly our workflow is adding to this, you know, this phase and task flow, again, completely customizable. We can add and put the things in there that are most pertinent to you. Now we've been looking this first half here at the front end of the system. Of course, everything you're going to be recording your information on, you know, key data points, and we do all of that so that we can extract KPIs. And so for any of those of you not familiar with the acronym KPI, that stands for Key Points Indicator. So essentially we want to know on a daily basis, you know, the key things that are important to you. So things like, you know, how many intakes am I performing per week? Which one of my sources is actually producing good cases? Which one of my employees has a better sign rate versus others? Those are all types of KPIs. So with FileVine, when you sign up with this, we go through with you, with your firm, we learn about you, exactly how you guys do certain things, and we help you develop these KPIs. From that, we get to the really cool stuff here. This is what I really like. This is our business analytics platform. We call it Periscope. Essentially, all the data that you have been recording inside of your system on a case-by-case basis, we get to extract that and make meaningful reports for you here. Again, if your case management system does not currently provide really cool data insights and reports for you like this, give us a call. We'd love to show you what we can do. If you don't know these types of key points indicators for your firm and how your firm is growing, you're flying by the seat of your pants, and that's kind of scary. We definitely want to make sure that you have the data at your fingertips to make meaningful decisions. So back to marketing efforts, I want to jump into what we call our intake dashboard here. It's not a super sexy graph. It's a bunch of rows and columns and stuff, but it does have really powerful data that I kind of want to recommend that you guys should be know and should be running at your firm. Again, this is stuff that we go through with every single Fileline client. Make sure that they actually know these numbers. But what we're looking at here is on a month-by-month basis. I can determine exactly how many cases I performed an intake. Of those, which ones qualified, which ones had an actual claim that I wanted to represent. We can then determine what we call a want rate, which is, do I want to represent these cases? And then ultimately, we're going to see how many of those did I sign? And then my final number is a conversion rate here. Now, this is looking at data from all cases that have ever come in. On my right-hand side right here, I have what we call quick filters. And if anybody's familiar with pivot tables, that's what this is going to do. So let's look at referral sources, right? I want to know if that chiropractor is actually sending me the cases that I expect to get. Are they good cases? Are they qualifying? I instantly can see now on a month-by-month basis how many cases have come from specific chiropractors, which of them actually qualified, and then my sign rate and conversion rate. Again, if you don't know these numbers, like we said before, you're going to be based, you're basing your decisions on anecdotal data, which is not good. We highly recommend that you meticulously know exactly which one of your sources is actually producing and which isn't. So let's see here, jump down to like our Google, right? We expect that Google to be really good here. It produced 15 cases for us in February. Only 5 of those qualified, right? This is a really good indicator to say, you know what, I need to tweak something with my ad. It's producing a lot of cases, but not hardly any of them are qualifying. What's going on with my ad? Are my target sources correct? Are my keywords, built out accordingly? Do I have my target audience? You can do the whole gambit of Google Analytics and pay-per-click and SEO optimization, to fine tune this number. But if you don't know this number, then you won't even know what needs to be fixed. Now from here, of course, we can pivot again accordingly to individual case managers or people that may be performing these intakes. If we have somebody that's out in the field, let's say Jackson per se, we can see what his individual numbers are for this, right? So we can see that in January, he performed 17 intakes. Only 1 of them qualified and he didn't even sign them. This is really good to know for employee performance reports, year-end reviews, which teams do I need to be training better. In fact, as we're looking right here, Jackson has not signed a single case. So maybe we don't want him doing intakes anymore, right? Maybe he should be working on demands or treatment, stuff like that. But again, if you don't record this
working on his resume.
Yeah. I wasn't going to say that, but yeah, absolutely. Big boss decisions may require them to make those kinds of adjustments. So anyways, we can look at this data on an individual employee per basis. We can look at it on a referral source per basis. And then we can ultimately look at it, if we have a classification set up and say, which one of my cases, are tier 1 classification, right? Are these going to be really good cases, stuff like that? Is this source actually going to be producing the kinds of cases I expect to be getting in? Again, build your system so that you can continuously grow and pivot and make these adjustments on the fly. If you can't, you are going to be limited by your technology. And we know anybody that's limited by their technology will not be able to grow. Great. Now, so we've been looking at a ton of the top end of the funnel here with intake data. We can ultimately, you're going to want to know exactly the totals per source that have come in, and if you want to look at a specific time frame, we can say, what was my previous quarter? What did the previous year look like? We can do all of those kinds of things. That way, you know exactly which one of your sources is producing the most by volume or by qualification or quality. You also want to know, again, which members of your team are actually getting their work done, which ones are signing up these good cases that are coming in. Again, we have the same pivot tables and quick filters and stuff like that we had on the previous reports. And this is going to be really great to know exactly what kind of growth you should be projecting for the following year, following quarter, following week, whatever that may be. Measuring exactly which one of my cases are actually coming in with, good quality or qualification status or referral source or classification or accident type. If you're trying to break into a new mass tort or, want to represent more tractor trailer accidents versus, minor fender benders, stuff like that. You want to know exactly how that's going for the ones historically to know what you're going to be doing in the future. In relation to this top end of the funnel, like I said, we're going to look at some back end of the funnel when we're starting to look at settlement data, right? Because this is really where the tire hits the pavement, right? You've generated a bunch of stuff at the top end of your funnel, a whole bunch of cases that have come in. What does it look like on the back end? Is my budget for Yellow Pages with that billboard or that TV ad actually producing the cases to make up for that budget? Am I actually making money off of it? You know, lots of times we'll see, you know, attorneys that they swear by their Yellow Pages ad. They love it to death. They've been with them for 10, 20 years, and they realize that they're spending, you know, $30,000, $40,000 a year on that ad, and they're getting $5,000 in fees at the end. And it's an absolute, you know, disaster, and they're never actually making any money on that. So very similar to that intake dashboard. Again, we're going to see on a month-by-month basis how many cases I actually settled, what is my total in settlement that I've collected, and then what are my fees that I have that I've netted to the firm. We then do a few average calculations. You know, what's my average per month that I've settled? What is my average fees per case that I've settled that month? And then ultimately my cycle times. How long did it take for the case to go from signed up to settled? Now, this is really cool. Again, we're looking at every single case in the firm. We want to pivot now and look at these specific sources and see exactly which one is pulling their weight. So again, let's look at chiropractor. We can look and see, you know, on a month-by-month basis, these are the cases that settled that came from a chiropractor referral. I know that I collected this amount in fees, right? And ultimately, you know, for the full year, you know, over 200,000. We can see that on a average per case basis. Here's how much I'm collecting, stuff like that. Now, this is really important when we're talking about, let's say, let's look at our Google ads here, right? We may have a very, very large budget for Google, but realize that actually, you know what, it's costing us, you know, let's say on a per case basis, let's say $10,000 to get a single Google case that signs. You know, 1,100 right here, we're not clearing very much. Our margins are not huge. Let's actually look at this next report right here, because I think it'll illustrate the point a little bit better. So we know that from, you know, April 11th to August 1st last year, here's what we collected in fees per source, right? So we collected over 3 million in fees from Google alone. Let's say our budget was, you know, 1.5 for that period of time. That would be a really good decision, right? We're definitely making money on it. Let's look down here at, let's say our Yellow Pages, right? We spent 120, or excuse me, let's say our Yellow Pages budget was 150,000, but we only collected 122. That would be instantly something that I would look at, reevaluate, and let's reallocate those sources to maybe something that's going to produce a little bit better. You know, obviously we've got a really good billboard that's producing right here, or internet searches or radio ads, stuff like that. But again, if you are not collecting this data, you know, you're not going to be able to make these kinds of key decisions and points that are going to help your firm grow. Now, ultimately, it's really up to you if you are actually going to, you know, measure these kinds of key points, right? Data in, data out. That's what we want to be looking at. You know, we want to know exactly who's pulling their weight, which one of my referral sources are producing best for me. And if you're not,
what's your recommendation, Logan? Sorry to
interrupt. No,
you.
you're fine.
You know, I think a lot of firms would love to have this data, but they have this problem where their data isn't clean,
right?
And you know, other than kind of throwing a hissy fit with your employees every couple of weeks about keeping your database up to date and correctly entered, what methods have you seen Filevine firms put in place to ensure better data quality?
Sure. You know, to that end, you know, if you're just sitting on at the pedestal and saying, make sure you enter this, make sure you enter this, it's never going to get entered. We see that every single time. They say, well, I tell them to do it, and they never do. You know, we facilitate running what I like to call an audit log, where you're going to get a spreadsheet layout of the case. And let's actually take a look at one of those. You know, let's drill down here to June cases. And we're able to see on a row by row basis each case that has come in, and we can see exactly the gaps in the data here and know exactly, here's a condensed list of cases that are missing key data points, right? We don't know the fee details on any of these cases right here. What's going on with that? How come that hasn't been recorded? We can then follow up with the primary attorney and say, hey, Matthew, go back through and fix all of your cases. It's definitely something that takes some training, but running an audit log on the key data fields inside of your system and ensuring that they get filled out correctly is always going to be the best way to do it. Right?
I don't know if you have this queued up, and it's fine if you don't, Logan, but I find that a little used, but maybe one of the more powerful recent releases we have is our auto hashtags that automatically tell you when you're missing a field. Now, you don't necessarily have to show everybody how to do that right now, but it might be worthwhile explaining kind of how auto hashtags might help ensure data quality.
Absolutely. Let's take a look at the system and see if we can have something like that. So let's do meds. Okay, perfect. So here is an instance of using that auto hashtag
Absolutely
feature.
Beautiful. I don't know who's all watching and listening to this, but that's a pretty cool thing that Logan just did.
So essentially, we'll set up your system that'll provide certain logic points. So for instance, we're looking at here specifically anytime a case that has total meds that exceeds $10,000. FileVine instantly is able to flag those cases and use this auto hashtag feature to say, hey, meds is over 10K on this case, right? Time to settle, right? We're done.
And to be clear, no one had to go enter that in, right? The meds just exceeded it through your normal meds tab, and FileVine's kind of running a report in the background, allowing you to see that. Actually, go to one of those cases so they can see what an auto hashtag looks like.
Sure. So it's going to show up right here in the hashtag. It's a quick flagging section, right? I know hashtag is a super millennial, but essentially it's basically a quick flagging section to flag what is happening with the case. So in this instance, we can see file because it's got this little FileVine logo right here. FileVine automatically added this tag to say our meds, our total meds over here. Let's see. Find meds.
I think it's in med records.
There we go. We can see that our total amount is over $10,000. And again, you can set up these stop limits however you'd like. If you want to know cases that are missing SOL, meds over this, expenses over that, time worked total over this amount of number, we can instantly set up this logic to say, hey, time to pull out on the case, or hey, time to move forward, or hey, here are the action items that I need to take care of.
Yeah, so some hashtags that I like are in the realm of data quality would be missing SOL. That's a big one. You definitely want to know if you're missing an SOL on a case, but also missing estimated settlement value, missing estimated settlement date, missing final settlement value. Those are tags that we can automatically put on a case. They make for super easy reporting, but also it's a way to alert any user who goes onto that file, hey, there's an important data point here that's missing. And so I really like that. We're not going to talk about this today, but if you have budgetary concerns around how much in costs is occurring on any particular case, you could have an auto hashtag that says, hey, watch out, you already have $5,000 worth of expenses on this case. So it's a way to kind of, I don't want to use the term AI. I think that gets thrown around a little loosely nowadays, but in a sense, FileVine is kind of telling you what to do and what to look out for automatically behind the scenes.
Right. We want to set up this logic, and again, you can define the logic however you'd like, just to ensure that. So again, we're going to see meds over 10K, missing settlement value, missing estimated settlement value, or projected date, settlement date. And again, that's going to show up here on these back-end reports. I would venture to say that every feature that we've developed in FileVine is to help the attorneys out, right? We understand that if you are limited by your abilities technologically, right, your business is ultimately going to be the thing that struggles the most or gets hurt the most because of that technological limitations. We want to facilitate your growth. We want to help you get exactly what you need so that you don't have to spend time reviewing audit logs and poring over data and doing employee trainings and stuff like that, right? That's all good foundational work. But at the end of the day, right, you want to be an attorney. You want to be utilizing your tools to help you in your profession, and FileVine definitely is a great pairing for that. Perfect. Well, so, we've gone over a lot of, data stuff. We've gone over a lot of marketing efforts. You want to make sure that you have a good phase and task flow, workflow set up, be able to pivot, all those kinds of things. We're actually,
yeah. So I actually, before we start talking about Ringbird, which we're really excited about at FileVine, Logan, tell me what you hear from the law firms that you've implemented regarding some features that I think get used a lot by some firms, but I think other firms don't use too often, which are like texting features or auto communication type features like auto emails, and how those can be used to help client retention. I mean, those who've kind of heard me speak before and heard me kind of talk around marketing efforts know that it's kind of a common thing, a thread in my feelings on this issue, that you can expect to get a lot more referrals if you treat your clients well. And I know that's somewhat axiomatic, but at the end of the day, so few attorneys do that well at scale. It's very easy to be one attorney handling a bunch of cases on your own, but as soon as you exceed kind of what an attorney can do by themselves, you either decide not to scale and not to grow a law firm, or you decide to scale. For those of us on this call who decided they want to build a law firm with multiple people involved, then it becomes a lot more difficult to maintain that very high level of customer service. And so, I think of texting, I think of auto emails. What have you seen? How have lawyers use those tools and perhaps others to keep customers happy?
Right. We have first and foremost, of course, the texting feature, right? No attorney ever has to give out their personal number anymore. FileVine allows you to text straight from the system, but we actually incorporate that with the phase and task flow. So on a however frequently you'd like, 5 days, 10 days, 15, 30, whatever that may be, you'll have a reoccurring task that gets assigned to the case manager to say, hey, follow up with the client. Check in with them. How are they doing? How many reviews have you read of attorneys on Google that says, I never heard from my attorney. It was impossible to get a hold of them. They never answered my messages, right? That is like probably the most frequent thing I see there of why people are dissatisfied with their law firm is lack of communication. So you've got to ensure that you have those stop limits in place to contact them regularly, provide updates. And so texting is great. Automatic emails and case updates is something that we incorporate, especially with like the time of demand, right? They want to know instantly what's going on there.
Yeah. So one thing that I've seen a lot of firms implement lately that I really like are callback logs. So FileVine can keep track of who's called in and who needs a call back. And a firm administrator can essentially receive a report that says, hey, these are people at your firm who've received a call from a client, and more than 24 hours has passed and they haven't called that client back. Nothing is going to be more frustrating for a client than to not get a call back after 24 hours. To me, that is maybe one of the most essential things you can do and simple things you can do to make sure that the clients at your firm are happy and felt heard and understood and cared for. But again, doing this at scale can be difficult. But if you're tracking callback logs in FileVine, which is a very simple thing to do, you'll know if anybody on your team has not returned a phone call in a timely fashion.
And to that end, everything is going to get recorded in what we call the activity feed in FileVine that's going to manage exactly when calls happened, when we should be calling back, what are my to-do items left for the case in relation to contacting the client, when they called in, what did they want to know about, do we need to follow up, stuff like that. Again, it's all data in, data out at the end of the day. If you're not putting this into your system or you don't have a system that facilitates the data being put in, you're going to be, stuck with a bill at the end with an unsatisfied client who, isn't going to refer their friends to you or come back for, subsequent.
We talked about performance data, employee performance data.
We haven't.
I think that might be worth doing real quickly before you move on to Ringbird.
Right. So in relation to all, everything that we said, we, everything that ever happens inside of FileVine, you're going to get a timestamp with it. You're going to know exactly who did what in what case at what time. We then get to stratify that data over a time period and see, peak days of performance, peak days of activity, low days of performance, low days of activity, stuff like that. But this is important because we can see exactly when a client followed up with, when an employee followed up with a client, when we sent them a letter or completed a task, we were instantly able to see exactly who is doing what, who's following up with the client on a day-by-day basis. You can actually utilize this data to see which clients have not been contacted in a certain amount of time, right? We never ever would want to go 30 days without contacting the client, even during treatment, right? Follow up with treatment every 10 to 20 days or at minimum after every appointment. How the appointment go, did they make it, stuff like that. So we have this employee performance data to know exactly, which one of my employees is spending their day doing good stuff, right? So we just instantly pivoted to Eugene, We're looking at Eugene on his last month, what he's done. We can see all the cases that he's accessed, all the meds items that he's accessed, notes, times he's followed up, text messages he's sent out, emails, stuff like that, right? We want to be able to look in a very, defined manner of what he's doing without having to sit over his shoulder and watch him, for his 8-hour shift that day.
What I often find when we're kind of going into law firms is that you have a particular type of employee that tends to dramatize the amount of work they have. And then you have another type of employee that tends to not really talk about how hard they're working. And oftentimes law firm owners get confused and they start believing that the person who complains all the time is actually busy, and the person who never complains is actually lazy and not doing all that much. This is a really quick way to check it, right? The Filevine does not lie. The performance metrics in Filevine are essentially ironclad unless you have somebody actively trying to kind of defraud the system, so to speak, and click around in it for no reason, which would be kind of crazy. So, apart from a really bizarre incident, there is really no way to fake how much work you're doing in Filevine. So if you want to check employee performance and actually how hard they're working, there is really no better way to do it than Filevine Periscope.
Right. And to that end, to all the trade shows we go to and firms that we talk to and stuff like that, when we show them this stuff, they always say, I've never seen a system that can do that. I've never had a system that would record exactly which one of my employees is actually working and not. Just one of the benefits of coming with Filevine. We'd love to entertain anybody that's thinking about that. Well, we kind of want to wrap up here. We do just want to hit last thing on Ringbird. Ryan, you want me to take over that? I don't know if you...
Yeah, so I'll briefly mention kind of what Ringbird is. So Ringbird had been a kind of a standalone call answering service. Filevine purchased Ringbird. We bought it out about 6 months ago. And since that time, it has grown very quickly. All Ringbird staff are now housed at Filevine physically on location. So you can be sure that the quality you expect from Filevine is going to be true of the quality you expect from Ringbird employees. It's probably worth me telling you a little bit about Ringbird employees and who they tend to be. To be perfectly blunt, most of them are in Provo. Well, all of them are in Provo for the most part, unless they're traveling to work. But in many cases, these are individuals who are bilingual by education. So they're often Mormon missionaries who come back from serving a mission, or they've learned a second language in school, or in many cases, they grew up bilingual. But they're all here in Provo. They tend to be very highly educated. They're going to sound great to your clients. I think you're going to be very pleased with kind of the level of receptionist. These are almost all college educated individuals. And they just do a fantastic job. And of course, a lot of the work they get is bilingual, and we really take a lot of pride in our ability to service bilingual customers for law firms. So Ringbird is a really good service. Of course, it's integrated directly into Filevine, so you're not going to see that with any other telephone answering service. It's pretty great to get a task in Filevine to say, hey, call a client back, and you didn't have to make a note. It didn't go over by email. If you're interested in Ringbird, please let us know. It's a very good company, and we're really excited to have partnered up with them and to have them part of the Filevine family.
Great.
Well, Ryan, tell me, this is Travis. Tell me, how does that work? Are they picking up the phones for law firms after hours and doing intake, from what it sounds?
Both. Yeah. So it's a call overflow answering service. So essentially a firm at any time can simply switch Ringbird on or off. But if they don't do that, then there's a set schedule. So, some law firms do it after hours. Some law firms do call overflow. Some law firms say, hey, it's MLK Day. The entire firm's taking it off. So all calls are just going to go through to Ringbird. That's totally fine. We're flexible enough that if we get a sudden burst of calls, we can handle it. On the other hand, if a firm says, no, you know what, we don't need Ringbird right now, we're going to handle it for the next week, we can kind of go with the flow, depending on how much they need to use of the service and how much they don't. It does integrate directly into Filevine, and they do intakes.
Wow, that's exceptional. Congratulations. I had, that's new news to me. So yeah, that's wonderful. I think that's the next step in the evolution for systems like this. And well done. That's great. Well, if you guys have questions, feel free to type them in the Q&A. If we don't hear from anybody in the next few minutes here, we'll jump off. But I just want to thank Ryan and his team for spending the time with us today to explain exactly how their system can benefit, law firms. And again, everything they talked about with data is what we preach, and hopefully it's resonating with attorneys more and more. It's, again, a challenge I think that a lot of agencies and software providers have. So, again, we appreciate you guys' time.
Travis, no, thanks for giving us the opportunity. We're excited to work with you guys, and anybody is more than welcome to reach out to me directly anytime, Ryan@fileline.com. And Logan's done a great job. He's extremely good at what he does. And it's Logan@fileline.com. You can reach out to him directly as well.
Excellent. Well, we really appreciate the time. And for those of you joining us at the AEA Boot Camp in March, we will see you there. Oh, we just got a question here from Steve Merrick. Is the Ringbird system integrated into Filevine, or is it a standalone service?
Integrated into Filevine directly.
Okay, so Steve, it's integrated directly into Filevine. Can they use it as a standalone service?
No, they cannot. Filevine purchased Ringbird in large part because we wanted an in-house service that could integrate directly with Filevine. All the Filevine employees are kind of keyed in on using the Filevine integration, and so their workflow would kind of be interrupted if it had to go outside of that. So there may be a point in time in which we allow non-Filevine customers to use Ringbird, but it's not now. And to be honest with you, there's been so much growth in that business, and we're so excited about it that I think we've got a long way to run before we need to go outside the Filevine customer base. Also, we're very proud of the fact, and I hope that this doesn't come across the wrong way, but we're very proud of the fact to be what we believe the fastest growing case management platform for plaintiffs' lawyers in the country. I think by quite a bit. I don't think there's anybody cloud-based that has nearly as many customers as we do. And so if Filevine keeps growing the way it's growing, Ringbird will have more than enough customers for a very long time.
Well done. Thanks for answering that. If anyone else has any more questions, please feel free to type them in. I think we have a few more minutes here, so we don't hear from anybody, we will jump off in the next few minutes, and we will post the recording of this on the AEA website, and I'm sure Ryan can make it available to the folks who registered for the webinar but were not able to make it. So we will be sending it out to everybody regardless. Well, I haven't seen any more questions pop up. It usually is a good indication that people have, you guys did a good job of answering all the questions in your presentation. So again, thanks for your time, and we will see you guys soon. And thanks again for joining us. Oh, no questions, but great seminar, Mark said. So, okay, thanks, Mark. We appreciate it. Again, thanks for your time, everyone. We're going to end the session. We appreciate it again, and take care.
Thanks so much. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.